Okay, this is what we call a data logger or dosimeter, and this is made by Extech, and this cover here on the data logger is removed, and then I simply just push the actual button here on the left and get it started. Now what this data logger does is it records sound, and what I have the employee do is wear this data logger on their belt and then loop this cable over their shoulder, and they put it right by their collar or cuff near of their neck near their ear. Now this data logger records data. It records decibels of sound. It does not record a voice or anything that an employee would say, but it records the actual decibels that they're exposed to. I can set this data logger to run data every 10 seconds, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 seconds. I usually set it at 8 seconds. That will generate a raw data output of over 8 hours of about 300 and some pages worth of Excel spreadsheet data. So it does do a good job at collecting the data. I do connect it to the computer, and I can set all the programming up through this data logger and initiate the start of the recording, and they do turn themselves off once they have reached their 8-hour runtime, and it's automatically saved, so I don't have to worry about being there late or turning it off at the exact time. They also have the ability to be paused should an employee have to leave. You can pause the data, and then when they get back, resume the testing and let it run until it gets to its 8-hour limit. We can run it for an hour if you want, or 3 or 4, but the biggest problem you run across there is then trying to get the mathematical equations as to what their exposure rate is for the 8-hour limit. So it's just better to run the test for a full 8 hours. Now, rather than certifying through NIOSH or OSHA the actual data logger itself, what we've done is we've got a calibrator, and this is all documented and calibrated through NIOSH sound level calibrator. It runs at either 94 or 114 decibels, depending what sound levels you expect to experience during the run. And I usually do a 114 decibel run because we do get some noises that go up that high. Now what I do is I insert this microphone. I just take the clip and the lavalier wind cover off, and I merely insert this into the calibrator, and then I turn it on, and then I will get near 114 decibels. And as you can see, it is running 114.3. There's a top screw up here that I will turn and adjust it to 114. Make sure it stays there, and then I will then set it as calibrated. I do the same thing at the end of the test. Now if it runs like 5 or 6 decibels off, then that will indicate to me that the actual equipment here has malfunctioned, because they do have a 3 or 4 decibel error rate to them. But if I start seeing a 5 or a 6 in the calibration point when I go to recalibrate or calibrate the first time, then I want to double check that, and if it does, then the unit is malfunctioning and I need to send it to the equipment manufacturer and get it fixed, repaired, or replaced. Now that being said, they wear these data loggers for 8 hours. At the end of the 8-hour time frame, I then will take it onto the computer, and after I'm done recalibrating it, I will then take and download the data. The data comes in 2 stages. I download it off the machine onto my laptop. Then from my laptop, I will then convert it to an Excel document on Excel workbooks or worksheets. And then I will have to manipulate some of the columns to make it all look better so people can understand it. And then I take and I add that and save it, and usually save it under the initials of the employee and the company name, along with who was performing the test, such as my name and PDCM. But then I get done with that, then I present a written report based on all this data as a cover page document to the client, and then they will have the information they need to make corrections or changes to their Sound level. Now, some of these readings could be 85 decibels or below, would indicate that the employer is no concerns and does not need a hearing conservation program. But should it be over 85 decibels, then they will need to notify the employee of the readings, and then they'll have to initiate a hearing conservation program, which then also requires them to conduct hearing audiograms on the employees affected. And keep in mind, it's only the ones that are affected. If you have a very quiet area in your workspaces on another side of a building where nobody's affected by hearing, they don't necessarily have to be in the hearing conservation program. You can isolate the noisy areas by position, jobs, and locations, and just conduct hearing conservation program and hearing protection for those areas that are of loud nature. So it really does a lot of good for an employee to actually be tested, and for clients to do the testing, so that they can understand where they are, so they don't guess, do I need a hearing conservation program or don't I? So this really takes a lot of the effort out, trying to understand what's going on and also know what direction you need to take your program.